Okay, so we haven't done a true wireless review in a while, but finally, I've gotten something new in. Okay, excuse that bad pun, but yeah, this is going to be the AG Cotsubu. The AG brand is actually just a new sub-brand from Final, I think. And they aren't shy about flaunting their pedigree with this little thing on top, sound tuned by Final, a Japanese brand. If anything, they take pride in the fact that this Cotsubu is tuned by Final. So, no more dilly-dallying. Let's see if this True Wireless set lives up to its final name in this review of the AG Cotsubu. Okay, so for the box, you're getting a design that's, I guess, closer to mainstream tech packaging. That's going to be a white background cardboard with the logos and the render in the front. Again, sound tuned by Final, a Japanese brand. Real important there. But yeah, on the sides, you're getting a lot of barcodes as well as like a bunch of like safety symbols and all that certifications. And then more specifications in the back. Quite a busy looking box for sure. So if we slide this out and get to the top bit, you are greeted right away with the instruction manual. This is printed in English, Japanese, and Chinese. It's decently detailed whilst not being too long, and but grammar seems to be correct for the English part. You also get this little booklet, which is for troubleshooting typical connection issues and all that, but they just kind of tell you to refer back to the manual, so this feels kind of useless. These two things were for covering the charging magnet bits on the Cotsubu buds. But yeah, this is pretty useless, and you've got the instruction manual. Now, going to our main box, basically you have the AG Cotsubu just laid out inside of a foam insert. I guess in this case it's like a foam cutout, and of course the box below, which contains the accessories. In said accessory box, you will find this, I guess, very basic USB Type-C charging cable. Not much else to say except that it works, and yeah, that's kind of it. And oh, what's this? Well, it's another piece of paper to advertise, I guess, the Final Type E ear tips for True Wireless. They really want to tell you that we did a lot of research to make this real nice. And yeah, to be honest, it is really nice. If I take these out here, like as you can see, these ear tips, like it's really nice, especially for True Wireless use. And the ear tips, they don't necessarily look like the full-size Final Type E, but rather they look more like a smaller size and short-stemmed version of the Senna earfits with a softer silicone stock. I'm quite satisfied with these tips actually. They might not look like the normal Final Type E, but they keep the same design philosophy. That is to have a comfortable fit and feel, and they basically nailed it. And here is the charging case for the AG Cotsubu. It's a pretty standard looking shape, reminiscent of the AirPod Pro's case. It's very petite. I'll leave a fake AirPod case here, it's quite beat up, as well as the case for the Samsung Galaxy Buds Plus for you to see a size comparison. And no, I actually didn't choose this color. I got it for half price from a guy that bought this Cotsubu from another guy. So yeah, I'm basically like the third owner of this, and I got a good discount probably because this is a really, I'll be honest, ugly looking color. AG says it's a brownie color, but to be perfectly honest, this kind of just looks like dirt. It's not nice looking at all. I don't know why they approved this colorway. If you're gonna buy this new, buy any other colorway than this one. This one just kind of looks bad. But yeah, it has a matte feel to it. Though I must say, when I tried a new model in the store, the matte feeling felt less rough than it is as I hold it now. So I think that with some use, the surface of the charging case as well, the buds here, they will get a bit rough. Don't quote me on that, but that seems to be what I remember. Of course, you're getting a USB-C port at the bottom, and it takes about 2 hours to charge up. Kind of a little slow, but you are getting like another 3 to 4 charges onto the Cotsubu buds themselves. On the front here will be a LED. Usually it will flash green when you open up the case, and of course it'll also pulse to indicate charging. As you can see right now, it's also yellow to indicate that it's low battery. Overall, it's a very nice looking case, although again I still don't like this color, but it's functional and it's nicely sized. Perhaps not the most original design, but hey, if it works, it works. And here are the final Cotsubu buds themselves. They really do look like a pebble, huh? But I guess due to this color, it kind of looks more like a lump of dirt. Final, why did you approve this color? Come on. But yeah, the shape, it's decently small and petite, and you're getting this pretty short nozzle actually. However, when you pair it with any tips and of course the final type E for 2 watts here, it can still give you a very deep fit to your ears actually. Wearing the Kotsubus are a great experience. You just slot them into your ears and they're light and comfy, and they have a good grip, so you can even run or jog with them. I don't think it's gonna fall off at all. The final E for 2 watts stuff, ear tips, it creates a good seal that somewhat even mimics the effect of ANC, as you're getting a decent amount of low-end attenuation through just like passive noise cancellation. Yeah, it's blocking a lot of like sounds of like car engines and sirens and all that. So yeah, it gives quite a good seal. And as you can see on the front, you're getting an AG logo, which is quite tasteful looking. And next to it is the LED indicator, and I presume it doubles as a mic hole, but I'm not sure. They have all the usual sort of flashing patterns to indicate connection and all that jazz. But note that in use, these will periodically light up and flash green. But in outside lighting, it's not strong enough to be too distracting, so I don't think it's much of a worry. These earbuds are advertised for 5 hours of battery life, though throughout my use it's maybe to the tune of 4.5. But again, this thing has gone through 2 previous owners, so it wouldn't surprise me if the battery in here is a little worn. To charge them, well, you basically open up the case, you plop it in, it sort of attracts magnetically, and there you go. It's good to go. It'll take you maybe a bit more than an hour for it to be fully charged from like flat battery.
Mic output on the AG Cotsubu is typical of a true wireless set, in that it is pretty basic and my voice is coming through, however quite compressed and low fidelity. This will do for a basic call and maybe Zoom meetings, but not much more I don't think.
So for sleeping use, the AG Cotsubu is only alright. I mean, when you lay it to the side, you can still feel the Cotsubu kind of jut up, and it sort of tries to dig itself deeper into your ears a little. I don't like that as because you can't really lay to the side that well on this, but since there's no cable, it doesn't create microphonics, so that's cool. Overall, it's okay for sleeping use, but for a true wireless that you use for sleeping, I might recommend the Redmi Buds Free Lite that I reviewed before more than this one. And as for the features of the AG Cotsubu, honestly, it doesn't have much. This is basically just a music listening set, and that's about it. You have a somewhat non-standard control scheme that allows for like hardware volume adjustment by double tapping the left and right sides when listening to music for volume down and up, as well as touching and holding the two sides for track skipping. But I really wish that they reversed these two functions. That would make a bit more sense, but sure, I guess. The touchpads on the Cotsubu are standard for their price. They register about maybe 80% of the time, but if you're too quick about it, or if you're a bit inaccurate with where you tap, it won't be as tolerant to mistouches and like gestures. So yeah. As for water resistance, you're getting the usual IPX4 rating, which is quite nice. This will probably do fine for a rainy day or working out as well. With codec support here, you're getting SBC, AAC, and AptX adaptive thanks to the Qualcomm 3040 chip powering the Cotsubu here. But otherwise, there isn't any sort of like a low delay game mode here, and a quick delay test shows that the Cotsubu keeps stable at about 300 milliseconds of delay, but it can go up to like 400 plus milliseconds at times. So obviously not optimal for gaming, and if you're really gaming, use a wired set. There's no companion app to go with the Cotsubu either, so there's no like custom EQ settings, there's no touch remapping, and all that stuff, kind of like the Moondrop Sparks, despite the fact that we're using the same Qualcomm chip. So you're just getting a pretty threadbare set with the Cotsubu here. Now, with the ear tips, for this thing, I'll be using the medium-sized Final E for true wireless ear tips included in the package. These are some really nice tips that get a good seal on my ear whilst not feeling too uncomfortable. As for the firmware on this thing, well, because there's no app for it, I don't seem to be able to find anything about the firmware updates, so what Final ships this with is basically what you'll get. With all that out of the way, let's get into the sound of the AG Cotsubu. Now, this AG Cotsubu, it is indeed tuned by Final, but I guess it's not the Final that you're used to. This is, I guess, the mainstream consumer version of what a Final sound would be like. It's kind of dark, with an emphasis on bass, but it's really nicely handled actually, and easy to listen to. It's really nice for a non-fatiguing sound, and they definitely know what they're doing here. Starting with the bass. The bass on the AG Cotsubu has a very soft texture and an extended decay, which lends itself well to coloring the music with a sense of fullness. It's not slow at all, however, though perhaps at times sounding a bit artificially bloated, with a bit more mid-bass emphasis, though its sub-bass follows closely behind. You're getting a good amount of rumble for a true wireless set if you're listening to slower, more melodic genres, and maybe even some heavier types of music that doesn't require like super fast bass notes. This bass presentation is great. It's a treat. However, Final basically sacrificed the cleanness in the sound with this. As the bass, it unapologetically encroaches onto the other frequencies, and it just becomes the dominant feature of the sound in a lot of songs. And because of the very soft texture and the slow decay, I'm also left wanting for just a bit more bass detail on this. But otherwise, it is an easygoing, loose, but also very fulfilling type of low-end presentation, and I quite like it. The mid-range on the AG Cotsubu is also really nice, but it's definitely tuned for a particular taste. It's got a decently warm lower mid-range, no doubt aided by the bass, but its upper mid-range is quite recessed. Thanks to this, they do sound very laxed and easygoing, giving vocals a sort of weight and emotional quality without any sort of piercing or shoutiness exhibited. However, if you're going from a more Harman-inspired sound or even diffuse field, even a V-shaped signature, you will find that the amount of peanut gain here is quite unsatisfactory, and it does make the Cotsubu sound quite dark. The advantage here is that you're getting a very easygoing sound that is excellent for long listening sessions with little to no fatigue, as well as a perceived sense of extra depth in the staging. But the weakness of this sound is that some songs can sound really dark and at times muffled and distant, even if thankfully rare. The timbre and note weight here is also noticeably skewed due to this sort of tuning. The DSP on the Cotsubu, it's very intentional. It just kills some details in the pursuit of a non-fatiguing sound. So the Cotsubu does decently in portraying macro details, but not a lot of micro details because they would just straight up be omitted from the sound. But these mids, they have a clear vision of what they set out to do, and they successfully create a very nice mid-range that I can listen to for hours on end without getting irritated. So again, it's good. Going to the treble range, the AG Cotsubu's treble, it mostly stays out of the way, I'd say, and it fulfills the vision of an easygoing sound decently. You're getting like an almost adequate amount of splashiness on top to balance out the dark sound a bit, but in some songs a bit of muffledness can be heard. The high-end information on display is just okay. It's typical for this price range, but because it is not the star of the show, it is, I'd say, quite hard to discern. Not much else to say here except that this treble, it does what needs to be done for the sound with no real standouts. Going to the soundstage, the AG Cotsubu has a decent amount of width. It's a bit slightly out of my head despite the dark tuning, though the bass, it likes to sort of pull up in the center actually. Soundstage height is almost non-existent, not impressive in this regard, and imaging could also really do with some improvement here. Now in terms of the technical ability, the AG Cotsubu is not that great. As I said before, it deliberately discards information and detail in order to achieve its relaxed presentation. However, I wouldn't put this down as a weakness, as it is able to fulfill its intended purpose as, an easygoing set. But detail heads though, you should really look elsewhere. The driver inside also responds quite well to EQ actually, so you can boost the upper mids a bit if you find the stock sound just a bit dark for your taste. So in a comparison between the AG Cotsubu and the Moondrop Sparks, between these two sets, I find that their build quality is matching. The Sparks with its soft touch and coated plastic, whereas the Cotsubu has a more matte surface. However, I must say that the Cotsubu is a much more ergonomic set, and the design of the housing here, it just fits my ears much better than the Sparks, where I try a lot of tips, but it's still quite hard to fit this kind of design to my ears because of their really weird looking nozzle. But yeah, I'm this is sort of like final showing that it's a more mature brand and it has more experience in developing these kinds of products, and I really quite like the fit on the Cotsubu much more than I do the Sparks. But again, the Sparks is quite generous in its packaging. It gives you 3 types of tips to tip roll, including a pair of foamy tips, whilst the Cotsubu, it just has the more, I guess you'd say, generic tech product style of packaging and accessories. You get a cable, for 3 sizes of Final E for true wireless, and that's about it. Talking about features, the Sparks will also have a Moondrop Link companion app, which again allows for EQ and touch remapping, as well as firmware updates. But the Cotsubu trades that feature for IPX4 water resistance rating. So on features, I think, even though that these two are equally bare bones, they are trading blows, and it's basically a game of what do you want out of your TWS and what are you willing to trade for that. Sound-wise, you're looking at two different sound signatures serving two different purposes here. The Sparks bass is lighter than the Cotsubu. The Sparks also has slightly warm mids, however, it sounds comparatively bright when juxtaposed with the Cotsubu, which has a sort of darker and more easygoing mids. The mid-range of the Sparks also has a lot more detail compared to the Cotsubu as well. Highs on both are okay, but nothing too impressive to generally make note of. Perhaps the Sparks is just a little bit more boosted on the treble, I guess. Technical ability though, it's a win on the Sparks. It generally sounds more detailed with better imaging than the Cotsubu, because the Cotsubu, it sets out to sound as relaxed as possible with a bit of thump in the lower end. So we see two tuning philosophies at play here. The Spark sets out to create a high fidelity sound, set out to smash that assumption that true wireless sets can't sound as good as their wired counterparts. Whereas the Cotsubu, it leans into the angle of a non-fatiguing listening experience with decent bass boost to sort of satisfy the mainstream consumers this thing is aimed at. Both, they succeed at what they do best, but which you like more will definitely depend on your listening preferences. And at roughly the same price, the Sparks being slightly more expensive at about $90, whereas the Cotsubu I think goes for $70, I can see you buying these two sets for being complementary to each other actually. One for, high fidelity listening and one for a relaxed sound. Because the E3000 is the only other final product I have, let's compare it with the Cotsubu. I think for the build, the E3000 goes with a metal housing and its cable, whilst seemingly fragile, has held up well for me over the years. The Cotsubu here is using matte plastic, and again, whilst I don't like this color, the other colors that the Cotsubu has does look very nice and classy. Both of these products I think exude that sort of Japanese minimalistic industrial design aesthetic, and which I find the look of these very nice and quite tasteful. Their build quality is also roughly on par with each other, I'd say. Now for the sound, you can see the same tuning philosophy in these two sets, but with slightly different interpretations. The E3000's bass is enveloping, but much less in quantity compared to the Cotsubu, which has more thump and rumble. The mid-range on both of these are geared towards a relaxed sound, but the Cotsubu's, it's a little dark and it's lacking detail compared to the E3000, which I find to be pretty much the perfect sweet spot. Highs on the E3000 are a bit more present as compared to the Cotsubu as well. Technicalities on these are quite close, but I'd say the E3000 has the edge on most metrics, and especially in its soundstage where it is vastly wider than the Cotsubu, giving it a much more airy feeling when you listen to the music. You can basically think of the Cotsubu as a darker and narrower, more bass-heavy version of the E3000 basically. But both are quite nice for long listening sessions, just a little bit different in flavor, I guess. Though I personally prefer the E3000 more because you know how I rate this thing very highly. You can't deny the convenience of using the Cotsubu thanks to it being a true wireless set. So at the end of the day, I think AG, or I guess let's just call it Final because it is Final, they have succeeded in making an entry-level true wireless product that has both a mass market appeal whilst also bringing with it a bit of that Final DNA, which is a very refined and elegant design and an easy to love sound that has a clear vision of what it wants to do and does it excellently. I got this Cotsubu for about $35, so half the usual retail price, but even at the MSRP, which is I think $70, it's still worth it. you're getting a really nice design disregarding this colorway that I have. I don't like this color. It looks like dirt. But it's a really and you also get a really nice sound for longer listening. And again, the final Type E ear tips for true wireless, these are really good. Like, I'll probably be using more of these tips in future TW true wireless sets because yeah, it's just a really good ear tip. I originally wrote off AG and the Cotsubu as final sort of selling out to provide like mediocre products just to break into the mainstream market, but no, clearly they have a vision of what they want to do and their execution is on point. Okay, we've reached the end of yet another review. As always, I'll put links to the music I use in the description, links to my website, as well as the link to my Patreon, where of course if you want me to get the budget to actually bring more stuff in for review, that's where you can support me. Shoutouts to my Tier 2 Patreon, 78 Dragon. Of course, Tier 2 patrons get access to my video script, and the lower tiers get access to my behind the scenes footage, some extra photography on these products as well, if and when they are available. Otherwise, like the video if you like it, subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of content, and as well my gaming content. And I've been recently doing a bit of sort of vlogging stuff, I guess. And of course, if you have any questions, any suggestions, please sound it out in the comments. And otherwise, I thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. This is Lumerion, signing off.